Good morning and welcome to Fort Mifflin. This morning we will be talking about soldier life. Here you see spread out on the tables equipment that the soldiers on both sides, both the British and the Americans, would use. Let's start with uniforms. Right here is the British uniform, the bright red coat. An American uniform. This is called a regimental. It'd be worn by an American regiment, say the 1st Pennsylvania, 2nd Pennsylvania, 1st New Jersey, something like that. Now all these coats, these regimental coats, the British coat, the blue coat here, they were made out of wool. Wool was a natural fiber. And again, that was your coat, that was your uniform both summer and winter. Summertime, you're kind of hot. Wintertime, you're nice and warm. This here is called a hunting frock. It'd be worn by either sometimes regular Army units in the Continental Army or sometimes by militia. What I'm wearing basically is a hunting frock, my breeches, my stockings, my shoes, my hat. I represent a militiaman. The canvas sack I have here is called a haversack. In that, I would carry my mess gear, which would be, say, a plate made out of tin or pewter, or a wooden bowl. It could be made out of a tortoise shell, like this bowl is made out of right here. The food might be perhaps a sack of cornmeal, perhaps a sack of rice, and he would have hardtack. Hardtack is the bread ration made out of flour, water, and some salt. Usually it's square shaped, but it could be round as well. These are pieces of hardtack that have been broken. And it's called hardtack because, well, it's hard bread. This right here is a block of tea. Generally, if a soldier wanted tea, he would take his knife, fill up his cup with water, his cup right here, and actually take his knife, run it along here and scrape off some of the tea, put it in the water, and then boil it over the fire and make himself some tea that way. I might have fish in there, and this is a piece of dried salted fish. Soldier would also carry tobacco. Tobacco might be in a pouch, or generally it might be in twist like this. Dried tobacco leaves carried in a metal container. Soldier would carry a pipe. The pipe is made out of a clay ball and a hollow reed stem. He'd put some tobacco in his pipe, crush it up, put it in his pipe. And to get generally he would take a burning twig from a campfire and use that to light his pipe. As far as starting fires go, we have flint and steel. And we have material here called tow. Tow is a fine hair-like material. It's generally left over from making flax used to make linen. It could also be dried leaves, anything combustible. You take your steel, you take your flint, and when you strike the flint against steel, sparks fly. If you do it close enough to the tow, sparks catch onto the tow. It starts to smolder. You blow on it to get it smoldering more and more. Once an open flame comes up, you put it into your small campfire of twigs. And as that starts to burn, you add more fuel to the fire, and pretty soon you have a pretty large campfire. Soldier might also have to shave. Army regulations said the soldier had to shave once every 3 days. So we would have a razor, and it's a straight razor. He might carry a shaving brush and some shaving soap. Wet the brush with water from his tin cup. Put water from his canteen into his tin cup. Lather up, then have a comrade shave him using a straight razor like this. Or if he wants to and is brave, he could actually use a camp mirror like this and try to shave himself holding this camp mirror. For recreation, when the soldiers are having their dinners, after dinner, they're sitting around a campfire, they're talking to each other. They're telling stories, telling where they come from, what area of the country they come from, what town they come from. They talk about their family life, they talk about their friends, and things like that. They also talk about any possible battles they were in, their experiences, so they get to know each other that way. For recreation, they might have some amusements. Perhaps a cup and ball, and the idea is with the string. If you toss it up like that, eventually they get it to sit on the cup like that. Or if you're really skilled, if you look right here, you see a small hole. And the idea is to, again, toss it up and get the ball to actually sit on that point right there like that. So that's one way of amusing yourself. Another way of amusing would be playing cards. And the cards basically are similar to the cards nowadays in that the suits are the same. Diamonds, this is clubs, this is spades, and this is hearts. But if you look at the cards, you notice they have no numbers. Reason being, a lot of soldiers were illiterate, meaning they could not read or write, or they just knew enough reading and writing to be able to sign their name, but they could count, so they would count the spots on the cards. So again, the cards look like the cards do nowadays, except that generally they had no numbers on the cards. The soldiers would count the spots. As far as drinking vessels go, generally they might be issued a tin cup. Cup would look like this. A large tin cup like this would hold about 20 to 22 ounces of liquid. Some men might have smaller cups, which would hold maybe about 10 ounces of liquid. And generally in the old days, nothing went to waste. If a steer was butchered for its meat, they'd use everything they could out of the steer, including the horns. And they would use the horns to basically hollow out the horn, smooth it out, clean it up, put a bottom on it, and make a cup out of it. So you have a drinking cup made out of a cow's horn. If they could make a bowl out of a turtle shell, they could make a cup out of a cow's horn. Eating utensils, a knife and fork, and a spoon. So that's some of the stuff you see here the soldiers would use. Again, bowls to eat out of, or a plate, different types of cups, different types of food, hardtack, tea, tobacco and a pipe, eating utensils, shaving kit. And the soldier might also carry a pair of clean stockings in his haversack as well, because after all, when he's on the march, his stockings would wear out. He'd have a sewing kit to sew them up that would contain a needle and some thread, wrapped in perhaps a piece of felt. But he'd also have maybe extra stockings in there as well. That'd all be jammed up in his haversack. I'd also have a canteen. The canteen would be for my water supply. Since I represent the American militia, my canteen would be made out of wood. It would hold about a quart of water. The British canteen was made out of metal, covered with wool felt. The felt matched the uniform. Generally, when the soldier dipped the canteen in the stream to fill it up, the felt got wet. That sort of helped cool the water as the water evaporated from the felt. For sleeping, I'd be issued a blanket, and generally have the blanket tied up sort of into what they call a horse collar shape. I would wear that across my body, say from right shoulder to left hip, or from left shoulder to right hip. Some men would, about every 5 men would form a mess. They'd be your comrades, your buddies, you'd get together. And each 5 men would be issued a stew pot. You'd put your rations in the stew pot. You use that for cooking your rations at supper time. Okay, as far as money goes, well, if you're a British soldier, you're going to be doing good because the British are paid in actual gold and silver coins. Basically, crowns, half crowns, shillings, and of course, the copper pennies. So if you're British, you might have a gold guinea, a silver half crown, perhaps a silver shilling. Well, the Americans were paid in paper money. And the problem is, each of the 13 states issues their own paper money. Plus, Congress also issued paper money as well. Well, if you're a Pennsylvania soldier and you've got paper money, and again, this is, if you're a Pennsylvania soldier, you have Pennsylvania money and you're in Philadelphia, no problem, your money is good. Now, if you're a New Jersey soldier and you're issued New Jersey money, but you're in Philadelphia, you might have a problem because, well, New Jersey is across the river. And if you have a $5 bill of New Jersey money the storekeeper might accept that bill because, well, all he has to do is take a ferry boat over to Camden or to Trenton to cash that bill in, but it's going to cost him some money to get there and to get back to Philadelphia. So instead of allowing you to purchase $5 worth of merchandise in his store, he might just say, well, since I have to go to Jersey to cash in this note to get my money, to get my gold, to get my silver, instead of giving you $5 worth of merchandise, I'll give you $3 worth of merchandise, because that way I can deduct my costs from whatever you're buying. So he might do some business with the New Jersey soldier or the Maryland soldier. Although the Maryland soldier, he's got to go a little bit further to Maryland. So he might only give the Maryland soldier $2 out of that $5 bill. Now let's say you're a Massachusetts soldier and you have $5 in Massachusetts money. Well, Massachusetts is a long way from Philadelphia. And the Philadelphia merchant might not want to do business with that Massachusetts soldier because he has to go all the way to Boston to get his money. And Boston is a good 400 miles away. So he might just say to the Massachusetts soldier, no, I'm not going to sell you anything. Get out of my store. So the Massachusetts soldier is out of luck. Now Congress also issued money as well, called continental currency. But that was issued on the basis of a promise by Congress to pay whatever the bill said, whatever the denomination of the bill, after a treaty of peace that was ratified between the United States and Great Britain. Well, if we lose the war, continental money is worthless. If we win the war, Congress may not be able to keep its promise, so continental money still might be worthless. So basically, a lot of people would not accept money issued by the Continental Congress, hence the phrase, not worth a continental. Now this bill I'm holding right here, this is a $4 bill, continental money, issued by the Continental Congress. Now, this is another piece of paper money. However, this is a 15-shilling bill issued by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So if you're a Pennsylvania soldier and you have this bill, this piece of paper money in your hands, in your pocket, you can spend this in a Philadelphia store because it's Pennsylvania money. And the storekeeper will give you 15 shillings worth of merchandise because you have the Pennsylvania money. So basically, it made it hard for the soldiers. Soldiers were supposed to be, if you were in the Continental Army, you were being paid $6.67 a month when Congress had the money to pay you. And generally, Congress would pay you in continental currency. Although again, if you're saying the Pennsylvania line, which was part of the Continental Army, Congress might make a deal with Philadelphia, with Pennsylvania, that you would be paid in Pennsylvania money, so that way you could spend your money in Pennsylvania, but you have problems in other states. Now the British, they're paying their soldiers in hard currency, in gold and silver coins. So if the British soldier is earning his 2 shillings a month, he can spend his 2 shillings anywhere in the 13 colonies, wherever he's at in the 13 colonies, or in Canada, or back in England. His money is good no matter where he's at because it's made out of silver, it's made out of gold. These coins here, gold and silver coins, good anywhere. Other equipment I would carry, well, I need ammunition. So I would have my ammunition carried in a leather pouch called a cartridge box. It's made out of leather. The leather is polished. It's water resistant. Inside would be a wooden block, and the block would have holes drilled on it for about maybe 24 to 30 cartridges. The cartridges would be made out of paper. So it looks something like this. I might have a tomahawk. Tomahawk is an axe. It could be used as a tool to chop wood, cut firewood, perhaps break the ground to start for a trench. And I could use it as a hammer. And as a hammer, I would use it to bang tent pegs into the ground, and as a bang nails, things like that. This is a smaller version of the tomahawk, but it has a cover on it. I might carry that in my belt like this. Weapons. Both sides use the same weapon. This is an English weapon, a musket. It fires a round lead ball. It's a muzzle loader, meaning that powder and ball are loaded through here. Generally, the soldier would take a cartridge out of his cartridge box, light off the end. Here's the lock. the hammer, the frizzen. There's flint there. Pour a little bit of powder in this pan, close the lid, pour the rest of the powder into the muzzle of the musket, put the musket bolt in there, and then take the paper as wadding, put that in there as well. Then he would take his ramrod out and just ram everything home. It would take about 15 to 20 seconds to load and fire a musket, which means a soldier could get off about 3 shots in a minute. It's called a flintlock because, well, when flint strikes steel, sparks fly, sparks will touch off the powder in the pan, and the musket goes bang. Do a little bit about the manual of arms. Right now, I'm at ease. Company, attention. Shoulder fire lock. Right shoulder. Prepare to load. To load, I would basically have my cartridge box on my right-hand side. And the only thing I would have on my right-hand side is my cartridge box. The reason is, the weapon is a right-handed weapon. If I try to load and fire this weapon with my left hand, I'm going to cause a problem because, well, I'm interfering with the men on either side of me, plus my right wrist is in the way. When the hammer is pulled, when the trigger is pulled, the hammer strikes the frizzen here, sparks do fly, I would injure my right wrist. So in the military, you do things the military way. Army regulations at the time called for men to do things the same way. So to prepare to fire after loading the weapon. Ready, and prepare to fire. We'd actually hold the weapon like this and fire with using your right hand to fire the weapon. Now a little bit about the Continental Army. The Continental Army later became the United States Army. It was founded by Congress June 14, 1775. The reason being, after the battles of Lexington and Concord and Bunker Hill, you had about 20,000 militia from the various states surrounding Boston, keeping the British holed up in Boston. Well, the problem was, with these militiamen, men came and went as they pleased. There was no order, no discipline. Men did whatever they wanted to do. See, the militia basically were part-time soldiers. They basically would be from a local area, defending just their little town or their county, their little area. They're farmers, they're storekeepers, they're shopkeepers, they're blacksmiths, artisans, etc. They may be on duty 2-3 days a week, or maybe for a whole week, but they have businesses to run. After they do about a week's duty, they leave and go home, take care of their businesses and take care of their farms. Well, each of the 13 states also had their own state armies as well. For Pennsylvania, we had the Pennsylvania State Regiment. Well, these were professional soldiers. They were soldiers 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. However, if you're the Pennsylvania State Regiment, you're paid for by Pennsylvania. You're fighting to protect Pennsylvania and Pennsylvania only. If the enemy is in New Jersey or Maryland or New York, you really don't care because as far as you're concerned, they could be foreign countries. You're not going to go there to fight them. Well, the Continental Congress sitting in Philadelphia in June of 1775 decided we need a way to fight a war. We need a whole national army. So basically, Congress passed a law and started the Continental Army, June 14, 1775. And the Continental Army would be made up of regiments from each of the 13 states, but they would be a national army. They fight the enemy no matter where the enemy was, whether the enemy was in Massachusetts, or Pennsylvania, or Virginia, or South Carolina. They're fighting for the whole country, all 13 states, not just for one state. So Congress sets the rules. First rule Congress sets is, okay, you have to be at least 16 years old to be in the Army because after all, armies are made up of young men. Old men start wars, young men fight them. So basically the Continental soldier was probably between the ages of say 16 or 17 to about maybe 22 to 25 years old, a young man. Because young men are strong. They can march 10, 12 miles in a day. They can live out in all kinds of weather, hot weather, cold weather, snowstorms, rain, whatever. They can eat whatever the Army issues them, no problem. And after a hard day's march, they can still go into battle and be able to fight. That's why the Army wanted young men. Men my age, I might be in the militia because, well, the militia, say if you're, say, in Philadelphia, since Philadelphia was not on the frontier, the militia was more like a social club. Musket drill at Fort Mifflin. We're on top of the wall at Fort Mifflin. We're going to fire the musket. I represent a colonial militiaman on the American side. My weapon, British brown bess musket. Both sides use the same weapons. It's a flintlock. Flint strike steel, provides spark, touches off the powder in the pan. It's a muzzle loader, meaning powder and ball are loaded through the muzzle. Right now I'm at ease. Company, attention. Shoulder, arms. Prepare to load. Take cartridge. Tear cartridge. Prime. I put the weapon on half cock, open the pan, pour some powder in the pan, close the frizzen lid, load cartridge. Load the cartridge and the powder into the muzzle of the musket. Take ramrod. Ram cartridge. I ram it down and make sure it seats properly against the breech of the gun. Return ramrod. I go back to the shoulder. When the officer in charge sees everybody at the shoulder, he gives the order. Make ready. Take aim. Fire. This is a Revolutionary War field piece. The wheels allow it to be moved around in the field and follow the armies. It fires a cannonball approximately 4 pounds in weight. Some tools here. This tool is called a worm. It looks like a corkscrew. It serves several purposes. First, before the gun is fired, we're going to insert this into the gun barrel to make sure there's no obstructions in the gun barrel. And insert the tool in the gun barrel, turn it around. The barrel is clear. Advance the charge. That's an order given. Advance the charge means that another soldier or sailor would bring me a powder charge. In the old days, the powder charge was wrapped in a bag of linen. We use aluminum foil. Much better. Insert the charge into the muzzle of the gun. We take a tool called a ramrod. What we're going to do with the ramrod is ram that powder charge to the back of the gun barrel. Now right here is a hole called a touch hole. I'm going to take a tool called a pick. Right now it's sitting on top of that powder charge. I have just punched the hole in that powder charge. In the old days, perhaps they would use a musket charge, open it, pour loose powder in there, or they would use a goose quill coated with gunpowder. We use a soda straw filled with gunpowder. Put that in there, we're ready to go. Our next tool is called a linstock. It has a piece of rope on it coated with potassium nitrate called slow match. It burns very, very slowly. Purpose is I'm able to actually fire this gun without standing between the wheelbase. If there were a projectile in that gun, along with the gunpowder, the gun would recoil backwards. If I stood between the wheels, I'd be run over by the gun. This way, I could fire the gun. Ready, fire cannon! God bless John Barry! Now that we fired the cannon, we must clean the cannon out. First thing we do is take our worm. running through that gun barrel. And what I'm doing is pulling out remnants of that fired powder charge. Then we take a swab, dip the swab in water, shake off the excess water, and run that swab into the barrel of the gun, swish it around. What this does is it extinguishes any burning embers from that powder charge. And we're ready to fire the next round. Ready! Give fire! Huzzah! Woo! God bless George Washington! Ready! Fire! Beautiful. Huzzah! All right, give fire! God bless America! Huzzah! Give fire! God bless Congress! Huzzah! God bless the United States! Huzzah!